Hey guys, a little bit of a different video today. More of a story time, more impromptu. I spent all morning trying to prove that FL Studio was not as good or at least different than other DAWs, and I failed. I'll bring it back to about a year ago. A lot of people have told me over the years that FL Studio isn't that good for mixing, like the sound of it, the way the plugins work and the way the mixer works, something about the programming of it just doesn't sound as good as something like Pro Tools or Logic. I kind of didn't know if that was true, but about a year ago, I was bringing stems in from FL Studio to mix in Logic, like I had been told. When I was recreating all the settings, the tuner, the Waves Tune Real Time, was actually tuning my vocals to different notes. I just recreated all the settings from FL Studio into Logic, and it was literally like sounding different. It wasn't crazy different, but it was noticeable. See, the thing is with compressors or reverbs, if it sounds different, it's kind of subjective and maybe it's just sounds a little different, but you never really know. But with a tuner, like objectively tuning to different notes, like I had to retake the vocals in Logic because it sounded wrong with the FL Studio vocals. Weird, I know, but this was kind of something I pointed to make the point that these were different sounding DAWs. So I wanted to make a video about that, kind of capturing that this morning, and I've spent all morning working on it, and I failed because they sound identical. I first started just by bringing a beat into FL Studio and into Logic, and then making the same vocal settings-ish, and well, I took the same vocal track into both, and they sounded pretty much the same, but I was like, that can't be right. I remember what I heard, I know what I heard. I'm going back to that original project. I dug it up. It was pretty old, and so some things were missing, but I got it all sounding right, and it was different. It was still different. The vocals sounded different in Logic, so I was like, okay. Then I started kind of isolating some different things and taking away some of the variables that I didn't realize were there. And I'll be honest, it was starting to sound a lot more alike than I remember. I was still on this kind of witch hunt. I still wanted to be right and kind of prove what I was, that I'm not crazy or stupid. And I don't know if I was all that right, because once I isolated just the beat, I mixed down the beat and then just took one vocal track and just had Waves Tune Real Time, and I did the exact same settings in both FL Studio and in Logic. I bounced that vocal track for both of them and then put them into Audacity. I knew I could line it up perfectly, and if they were exactly the same, there wouldn't be any phase issues, there wouldn't be any weirdness, and I'll show you what I heard. This is just those two vocal tracks stacked up, exactly aligned in Audacity. This is what I heard.
She said it's all the chose, but it's easy when it's you. I don't think we could lose, so tell me where to go.
Sounds pretty much identical. Now I was noticing that there was maybe a little bit of phase issues, and that's when I realized that if pieces of audio are identical, you can invert the wave on one of them, and it should cancel each other out. It's like a science thing. You make the peaks and the valleys over the true zero. I don't know. That's kind of beyond my pay grade. More of like a science thing, literally like the science of audio. But I knew if I could invert it and it was just canceled out and there was no sound, then it would be exactly the same. So let's invert it. I'm going to invert this Logic one. Effect, invert, and now let's hear what we hear when I push play. So it cuts in a little bit. You can hear it a little bit there. For the most part, it's dead silent. Like there's nothing. There must be some minute differences because you can hear like the highs. See, it's chipping in there. You can hear the highs coming through sometimes, or different pieces of the vocal. But for the most part, it's like canceling it out entirely. So based on that, I'm going to stop that, even though it's not making a ton of noise. Based on that, it seems safe to say that at least for that plugin, the point I was making was wrong. I was wrong. I didn't I didn't feel so bad, I guess. Still, there could be some differences in the way the other tonal qualities of these DAWs work, but from my point of view, at this point, like, this seems like pretty good evidence to say that they're pretty much exactly the same. And if you're mixing on FL Studio, you can make it work. It seems like to me that this is kind of a dead giveaway to say that there's not really reasonable major differences between the two. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, anything. Let me know. I appreciate you watching. Hopefully you learned something. I'll catch you next time.